Welcome, everybody. This is Habits of the Few. I am your host, Mo Nabolsi, and today I have a special guest, Dave Tate, the founder of Elite FTS. Dave has been involved in powerlifting for nearly 25 years. He's an elite lifter in 3 different weight classes. In addition to his wonderful platform numbers, Dave has totaled over 10,000 hours as a personal trainer, a strength coach, and has written over 100 articles for T Nation, Powerlifting USA, Men's Health, and Men's Fitness. Dave is one of those people that is reachable and incredibly humble, and he was nice enough to take the time to sit down with me for an hour and a half and do this interview. So without further ado, enjoy.
How long you've been in the powerlifting game? Like, when did you first get started, and what ignited you to fall in love with the sport?
I did my first competition in 1983, and I competed in my last competition in 2005. So what ignited it, and in 82 is when I started training for it, so I would have been 12. 83, my first competition, I was 13. I had a very, very small period of time where I dabbled in weight training just with the cement weights that an uncle bought me for Christmas. And at the time I was, I guess, a troubled youth, bullied youth, beat up youth. To me, bullied is something, it means something different to me than what it means today. So it's kind of it's a weird word for me to throw. I got my ass kicked every single day. So
like literally?
Yeah, because I was a special ed kid.
Oh, okay.
And so, I would have to be pulled out of classes for tutors multiple times a day and all this other stuff. So just, labeled as LD back then, which was learning disabled. And then it was attention deficit disorder, then dyslexia. I mean, the number of labels just kept accumulating over the years. But I think that's more because they just started making more shit up. Where at the very beginning it was just, hey, the kid's LD, or special ed, and that's where it was. And I wasn't really that physically inclined. So when I started training, I loved training just with the crappy, plastic weights in the basement. And my dad saw that. And, alongside of all this, I was getting in trouble and, just fighting back and stuff like that. And my dad owned a business, so it was an appliance business. He was in business for 20, 30 years. So one of his associates, friends, I don't know how you really want to call it, drinking buddies, however it was the chief of narcotics. And he discovered that he was a member and part owner in a small powerlifting gym in town. So I was kind of thrust into that. And I wanted to be. It wasn't like my dad said, here, look, I'm going to throw you in here and you're going to go train with these guys. I wanted to be because, I love training. And then that exposed me to, what most people would call, not really a garage gym because it was a storefront, but it was a dump. I mean, it was a private club. It was a key club.
There's
no
grungy
advertising. Oh, yeah, it was dirty. I mean, it was perfect. It's all I've ever known, so it's really all, with the exception of a few years, it's the only kind of gym I've ever trained in my life, where you expect mice and all this other stuff to kind of be a part of it. But they showed me, as soon as I got there, I was training for me. So it was 4 months later, I did my first competition, but I was instructed how to squat properly, how to bench properly, how to do all the lifts properly. And it wasn't, I don't want to make it sound like, they took me under their wings, because there's always a pecking order. There used to be a pecking order in gyms, where you kind of had to earn your stripes. So you had to load plates, you had to clean the shit up. You had to, the strongest guy kind of ruled, and then you just made small talk until, you kind of earned the right to train with them. And it's kind of a process, where, as I went through my powerlifting career, you either earned the right or you had to form some type of strategy, because I always wanted to train with people better than I. So as I was going to college and moving and so forth, I'd find out where the best people trained. And you're not just going to go in there and say, hey, will you be my training partner? You got to have a strategy on how you're going to work this out, to be able to see if it's going to work. It's like people today, and I'm trying to figure out how to write a microblog about this. People today will call me and they'll say, hey, will you be my mentor? And I'm kind of like set back, like, really? I don't know what to think. It's like, I kind of respect the balls that you have to call and ask, but this kind of isn't how this works. You want me to take, hours of my time to be able to help you build your business. I don't even know you. You've never been a customer of my business. We've been around for 20 years. Your gym's full of our competitors' shit. Why aren't you asking them? So after a while, it's a frequent thing. So after a while, it's like, it's not the person who's asking. It's like, is there somebody going around telling everybody, ask everybody to be your mentor? I'm like, there's like bad information going around that is being disseminated, so these people really don't even know how to seek, decent advisors or mentors the way that I would have had to, or people did years ago. Or maybe the digital age has completely changed that as well.
It is.
So forth.
It is, and the entitlement issue also, I believe, has been significant, because I've got younger siblings, and it's just insane. And I get what you're saying, the whole strategy tactic. What would you think would be the best strategy for someone that would? I guess because they have to respect your time, right? So instead of just blurting out, hey, will you be my mentor? And I'm not saying for you specifically, but maybe some other coaches that have affluence just like you and your coaching ability. What would you tell somebody? Like, hey, this is kind of the rule.
I guess I'll use an example. Let's say that I wanted to find, essentially my business is e-commerce. Let's say I wanted to find an e-commerce mentor. Well, obviously I want to try to find 3 different types of people. I want to find somebody who's way better at me, at what they do. I want to find somebody at the same level, and I want to find somebody that I'm better than. That way you're always teaching, you're competing, and you're learning. But aside from the point, if I wanted to find and seek out that person better, I'm going to do the research to figure out, are they better? Who are they? And that's technology helps that tremendously, because everybody's got a large digital footprint and everybody fucks up, so you can find out to a certain degree pretty close to what somebody's personality is if you spend enough time, digging around their digital footprint, if they have one. Sometimes they don't, and if they don't, then I know they're probably not a good fit for me, for the way that I run the business. Once I find that, then it's either strategy or luck, right? Some people just come into your life at the right time for the right reasons, and you got to be aware, and you have to be able to be open and aware to see the opportunity. And that's where I can lead into a conversation of try to control your stress, understand what you can control and what you can't control, because when you're too caught up in your own head all the time, you could have the greatest opportunity sit right across from you and you never know because you didn't see it. So typically that's where the best mentors come from, and the best clients come from, and, the best friends and everything else are usually right there in front of you, but you're too in your own head to see that. Outside of that, if it's a strategic thing, I would buy from them. I would create a buying history, even if it's a freaking t-shirt or, whatever it is. I would start to establish some kind of buying history, because anybody who's going to be asked something of their time and they own business, you can probably vouch for it. Pretty much they're going to, hey, has this person ever been a customer of ours? Are they on our mailing list? Have they supported us in any way whatsoever? So that would be the first thing I would do. Then I would, if I was younger, now I got more responsibilities. I'm not as agile as I was before, just as far as time to be able to move around. If they were speaking somewhere, I would go. If I knew they were going to go to a conference and they weren't speaking, I would go. I would find places to be able to kind of bump into them and then introduce myself. And then after, this is a long-term thing. You know, you're trying to find somebody, and you're also trying to figure out who they are.
Right.
You know, to see, is it going to be a good fit? Is it not going to be a good fit? And do I have something to offer them? Because to me, that's the ultimate mentor relationship. You're not going to pay any. Mentors aren't fucking paid. They help because they want to help you, and they're going to help you. And, you know, if you can help them with something in return, then it's a really good fit. You know, it's going to be a long-term thing where, you know, ego won't be involved, and it won't be like, oh, you're sucking too much of my time or whatnot. So anyhow, I find a way to build the relationship. And then from that, you don't even have to say, will you be my mentor? You run into an issue, you're like, man, what do you think about this? And then they tell you. And then you respect it and say, okay, look, I respect you if you agree or disagree. And if you're going to use their advice, you know, they always thank them for their time anyhow. But if you're not going to use their advice, then explain why, you know, because it's okay to have a difference of opinion. And most people understand that. And if they're in a profession, say if it's a lawyer or advertising or marketing, you know, something along that side, you got to understand there's always a line, you know, where you can ask your mentor for all this kind of advice, but as soon as he's got to start going to his staff and saying, hey, look, can you do this for Dave? You need to tell them to bill you, because now they're absorbing a financial cost outside of just their own time to be able to put press release or whatever it's going to be, you know, together for you for that situation. But that's how I go about doing it, and that essentially is exactly how I learned in the gym. You know, if it was a group of powerlifters that I wanted to train with and I just moved to a new town, it's like, well, where are the best powerlifters train? Well, guess what? That's the gym I'm going to join. What time do they train? Well, that's the time I'm going to go in and work out. Am I going to walk straight up to them and say, hey, look, I want to train with you? No. I'm just going to stay and do my shit and focus on what I need to do, which I already knew going in. You know, 99% of the people were not going to be as serious as I was. So some of it's scouting them as well. Same type of thing. You know, are these people I really want to be able to train with? Are they serious like I'm serious? And then over a period of time, you know, small talk turns into, hey, can you spot this? Can you spot that? And then it turns into you end up training with that group. But you got to put yourself in a position to be able to get into there and for it to be a smooth transition to where if I would have moved to a new town, walked straight into that gym and said, hey, look, I'm a competitive power lifter. Can I train with you guys? They don't know you from fucking Adam. You know, and they're like, oh, this is a cop. He's going to try to bust us. You know, you don't know what the hell. You know, that just kind of carries over into business.
Right.
Which that's where it's kind of weird to me, where people are just like out of the blue. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. You know, so I guess that's the answer to the question. That's how I would go about doing it. And it wouldn't just be one person. You know, when I was building the business, yeah, there were a lot of people I needed to find help from because I couldn't afford it for one thing, and I didn't know shit. So I'm reading everything I can possibly read, but there's still things that no book's ever going to tell you. And you got to build those relationships so there's multiple channels you're trying to work at one time, while understanding you still got to be able to bring something to the relationship that could help them as well. And because of that, I got a great group of advisors, you know, and I can go to them and I respect the hell out of them. You know, I've disagreed with them a lot of times and they respect that, but they've saved my ass so many times that, you know, I respect that.
And I feel like you're continually doing that because, you know, I've watched the series Fixing Dave Tate. I see that you let Dr. John Russell kind of go through and help you fix, I think it was mobility. Am I right? It was a lot of mobility.
Yeah, I mean, I'm paying the price of
lifting heavy
for 20 years, so it's just pain.
And then you got into bodybuilding a little bit with John Meadows.
Meadows and Justin Harris.
You
know, and Shelby Starnes. So there's a few.
You got pretty jacked for a while.
Yeah, it was, well, when I had a little bit of identity crisis when I retired from powerlifting, it's when it's your number one priority from 83 to 2005, you know, and when I say that, you know, I don't want it to be misconstrued because I was still getting a degree. I was still doing what I had to do to be able to have some type of career, even though I had no idea what it was going to be. I just knew that doing nothing was probably not a good idea. And I do see that happen with a lot of strength athletes now. You know, they put all their eggs in one basket, and I'm okay with that. There's still time for you to educate yourself and to set up a plan or a future to fall back on. It's just you might be a little later to the starting line. You know, so instead of, you know, getting into the workforce, you know, the year after somebody graduates from college, you know, it may take you 8 years to graduate from college, and then you'll get into the workforce 8 years after that. But at least you're still educated to be able to do it, so you don't wake up at 40 years old and realize you got a GED. You know, what the fuck are you going to do? Because you couldn't make a life in strength sports, which nobody does. But when it did come time for me to kind of hang all that up, it was, I didn't know how to train. You know, so I've always trained with intent, I've always trained with purpose, and it was like, what the hell, you know, I didn't even want to, like, why bother? You know, it didn't have any type of significant meaning at all. And I'm like, fuck, you know, I need to find some kind of challenge. And I did a small stint in bodybuilding when I was in college, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll try that because, you know, the mental challenge of the diet is something that I never really pushed to the extreme. And around that time, Justin kind of fell into my life as being, you know, as I said, sometimes these people just fall, you know, right in front of you. You know, you don't expect it, but it falls right at the right time. And things worked out, and we had a conversation, and it was like, you know, I couldn't understand how a top-level bodybuilder could turn pro and then put on 30 pounds of lean body mass. I didn't get it, because somebody could be a top-level powerlifter, and they weren't going to just flip a switch and then in the next year put 400 more pounds on their total. It doesn't work like that. You know, you get to a certain point and it gets harder. It doesn't get easier. And I could not, you know, figure it out. And he's like, well, let's try this carb cycling. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. I'm like, fuck it. All right, let's do it. And that was probably when I got my biggest, but I couldn't run a business and live my life that way. You know, it's just living every 2 hours, you know, buying a meal, you know, and I wasn't going to taunt the cooler around. And so I stayed 2 hours away from the kitchen, and I like the look, you know, I'm not going to deny that. I like the mental challenge, but it just got to a point where my body fat got so low is that after I would eat, I could think rationally for maybe 15 minutes, but then I would turn into a zombie staring at a wall again.
Oh, shit.
And I couldn't, yeah, so it's like I'm good for 15 minutes every 2 hours. So it's try to structure your work day, you know, in 15-minute blocks every 2 hours. But I still had to get the shit done. And that when that was over, it's like, fine, I'm not doing that again. And then, you know, but I was intrigued because I've always liked the training aspect of bodybuilding a little bit better than powerlifting.
Really?
So I was intrigued with that. It's more volume, you know. There's greater room for error. There's more variance, you know, where, you know, you can. Powerlifting is very calculated and very mathematical and very regimented as far as everything you do has to have a very specific reason to do it. Anything more than that could only work against you. And in bodybuilding, there's more room for error. It's like, hey, this feels good. Let's do more sets. You know, it's not going to
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Screw up your recovery for the next training day. Or if you want to try something new, you know, you don't have to sit there and think, okay, what do I need to pull out to put this in? And because of the volume and the workload and all that's really, it's more sub-maximal, so it's easier to recover from than it is if it's, higher on the level. So that part intrigued me. And then with John, when I moved into that realm, he was coming out training with me, and he trained his ass off, and I love training hard. So then I realized that this guy is actually putting a little periodization into a bodybuilding program, which I really haven't seen before. So that was intriguing. But even all that kind of lost its luster over time.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fell back into I need to do some heavy shit. I have to lift something heavy, even if my heavy is, way lighter than what it used to be before. It still helps with joint integrity and, all the other, there's benefits to it. There's negatives, so I'm not going to deny that. There's negatives to it, but there's positives as well. And I got to like what I'm doing. So it was just one thing kind of leading into another thing. And I don't know if I've ever really solved the identity crisis, from the training thing. But at some point in time, I will. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I'm probably one replacement away from really understanding the consequences. And, after 2 replacements, I still haven't figured it out yet. So I guess I need more.
Hip replacements?
So what's that?
Hip replacements?
Yes, I've had both hips replaced, and my right shoulder needs to be replaced, but I keep putting it off.
The fact that you're still training the way that you are today is incredible.
Yeah, well, it's good and bad.
Yeah.
I have my doctors know what I'm doing, so there are
monitoring you.
Well, it's monitoring. It's none of them are going to say it's good, but it's the lesser of the evils I could do.
Got it.
So if I'm squatting on a box that's a little bit higher than parallel hip to knee angle, then that's definitely safer than me squatting lower. And so it's all been worked through. But I mean, they all across the board are going to say you shouldn't be doing any of this shit. But if you are here, this is going to give you a little bit more longevity than what this will.
So I did one of your programs. This was probably a couple years ago. I read an article that you posted on T Nation. It was the extended tension program that you did for 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I cursed you every night with that program.
Yeah, that's a motherfucker. I don't even like that one. I'll never go back to
Holy shit. I literally was in so much pain I couldn't sleep. I tried to eat glutamine.
The hardest thing about that is watching. I mean, back then, we didn't have smartwatches and shit like that, but the hardest thing was watching the freaking clock.
Yeah.
I had to move the clock all around the gym and all that kind of stuff, but it works, but afterwards it's like, it's so boring. And
it can be like tedious to always have to. Yeah, I get that. But damn, I mean, so much lactic acid buildup, it just hurt. But it was good. Yeah. It was good. I probably will never do it again, but it was really good. Would you?
That's pretty much the consensus of everybody that does
it. Would you? So I'm doing your one of your dynamic effort max effort programs, and I did something really stupid last week on your dynamic effort day for bench. After I was done, I felt like I had a lot of juice in the tank, so I decided to be a dumbass and go do some overhead presses because I haven't done them in a while. So, I feel really good, felt strong, did a few sets. I was like, awesome. And my bench day was yesterday for max effort, and I was like almost 50 pounds weaker than I had been the previous few weeks. I'm like, yep, that's why you got to follow.
I was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it can be done, right? Because I work with lifters out here that I train them for meets. It can be done, but it's like, okay, what's the supplemental exercise that you currently have? Close grip bench presses, 2-bar press, whatever it's going to be. It's like, okay, we need to pull those out. We need to pull out the shoulder accessory work. Then we need to put this in. Then the question becomes, now, why again do you want to put these in? Because I think it will help my bench, but we already know the close grip and the other stuff does. So do you think this is going to help your bench more? And, you know, if they think so, then yeah, we'll give it a shot, but something's got to come out.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with max effort method and a dynamic effort method. I don't want to say they're extreme methods. They work very well together. It's just there's a give and take.
So right now I'm doing 2 max effort days a week and then 2 dynamic, and then in between I try to do some form of like mobility stuff, you know, I'll do like some strongman stuff for conditioning, like just farmers walks and things like that. Would you add anything specifically to those 3 days, or would you just leave it all together and just maybe do some like walking or something?
What works best for me on the off days, and I'm 50 and I'm beat up too, is just walking, you know, steady state. I've tried to do extra workouts on those few days, and if I'm really, really, really pushing for something hard, you know, like a PR on a box squat or something like that, then I will do some stuff to aid in recovery. But any other time I don't, because it depends why you're doing the extra days. If you're doing the extra days for conditioning, then that's a great thing. You know, that's completely different than if you're doing them for recovery. If you're doing it to help better recover between the 4 main days, what happens over a period of time is your body will adapt to those recovery days, and they'll no longer help you recover.
Oh.
So, yes. So now you run into an issue of, do you need more recovery days, or do you need to change your recovery modalities? So recovery work is just like weight training. You know, your body will adapt to whatever it is. So if I don't need the recovery work, I'm recovering well from session to session, I'm not going to do anything. Then if I do need it, then I'll start with passive recovery, you know, the RPR massage, or, you know, something like that. And that's not really because I don't have to do a whole lot. I know that the best recovery modalities for me are active recovery, kind of what you're talking about doing, and chiropractic. So I save those. Those are like, I put them in a treasure chest, and I lock it, and then I keep it hidden away. And I only pull that out if I absolutely, like, nothing else works anymore, and I'm training for, to me, a PR is, I got like 5 in my life. You know, the PR is the big thing. And I'm training for something significant, and I have to pull them out. I know they always work. So I would save them until the last 4 or 5 weeks if I need it to be able to pull out, because I know it will work. I'd hate to be 4 or 5 weeks out, training's going real well, then I start to get that just somebody beat me with the club feeling. Yeah. And I go to throw in, you know, the chiropractic or, you know, something else, and I've already been using it. And it's like, well, shit, I guess I need to try grasping now, and I've never tried it before. And it's like, oh shit, that didn't work. Now, you know, I just blew the whole training cycle because of that. So I try to save, and while I'm not training for something significant, which is kind of like a period I'm in now, I try a lot of different recovery modalities, just kind of experimental, but I'll maybe 1 a week, 2 a week, and see how that goes. So, and I know what a hot cold contrast shower does. It's minor for me. I'm so used to it anymore. It doesn't really do shit. So even pulling it out for years, it still doesn't help. But, you know, there are a lot of, especially if you find a practitioner. We got one here in Columbus, which is great. I mean, he does ART, RPR, chiropractic, and he's got, you know, those compression boots and grappling and needling. And I mean, there's so much shit that I'm like, you know, let's try needling this time. It worked, it didn't work. Or it really, I mean, my knee got a little boogered up a couple months ago in one session of that, and it was like my knee was brand new, and I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this again. I'm saving this shit. This is going in the gold pile. and because I didn't need it, you know, I didn't need it. Yeah, and you know, so much of it just kind of is common sense,
right?
And it relates again. You know, I can relate it to business, right? So for us, we're very seasonal because we do outfit weight rooms from the university level all the way down to a home weight room, and that's, say, 50% of our sales.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's obviously seasonal because universities' budgets, gyms don't open up during, Q4. Now, during Q4, that's retail, that's e-commerce. So my seasonality balances out because the seasonality of e-commerce sucks over the summer and picks up now. So during the summertime, when the seasonality of the e-commerce isn't that strong because people are typically outside, that's when we start playing around with different marketing schemes. Let's try this, because if it say it breaks our system, that's another, a whole nother issue with marketing is, what e-commerce platform are you using and will it break it?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't know until you actually take it off stage and throw it up, and you're like, oh shit, everybody just got that for free. It's easier to do that. Oh, it's happened.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and or actually what happens probably most of the time is you'll promote a sale and then, something will fuck up the cash or fuck up the sales rules, and then the sale will go off. And you don't know it until you start getting emails where people are saying, hey, look, I put this in my cart, and the price goes back up. And you're like, shit. These are better things to know when the site traffic's down and the order volume's down,
right,
than to do this now when the orders are really starting to come in. Because now is a problem. Because now, our core customer isn't, as we get closer to the holidays, our core customer aren't the ones that are purchasing. It's their sisters, it's their mothers, it's their cousins. And the last person you want to piss off in business is somebody's mom or sister.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. They will forgive you if you piss them off. Like if you're a customer and I fuck something up with you and I make it right, you'll forgive it. But if it's your mom, you might, but it's a lot harder process. So you really got to kind of have your ducks in a row in e-commerce, going into the holiday season, because they're buying for your customers.
Right. So they want that perfect experience.
Yes. And what happens a lot of times when you're in a niche type of market is you get asked questions like, well, how much are the band tension at the top of a chin? And you're like, oh my God, what the fuck, it depends what you weigh. You know what I'm saying? There's so many things that go through your mind if you do this all the time. But if it's a sister ordering for her brother, she has no clue whatsoever, you're going to get questions that are so far out of left field that seem so stupid. Like everybody should know this. And you can't get frustrated because they don't. And I just had this conversation with my staff a couple of days ago. So it's like a constant reminder every year that understand that these customers, they're not our normal customers, but they actually kind of matter more than our normal customers because they're the people our normal customers love the most.
And we'll probably come back season after season for something else.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, I started out with all Rogue equipment. It wasn't until, just because back then, because I've had a garage gym for years, I didn't have that big of a budget and I didn't really know any better. It wasn't until, so I've got like a lat tear, I've got crazy sciatic issues. Actually, I have a lat tear on both sides. And so deadlift for me had been a struggle. I hadn't been able to lift heavier than 315 pounds for who knows how long. It wasn't until about like three years ago, maybe longer, maybe earlier, that I got your Texas deadlift bar. Holy fuck. Like, it is such a completely different experience. I don't know what it is, but that tension just kind of goes with the momentum of your body. And so I'm able to lift heavy again. Like, I just hit a 550 deadlift a week and a half ago on my deadlift day, and I was just like, this is incredible. And I'm not like that strong. Like, I think the heaviest I've ever lifted on a deadlift was like 585 or something like that. My squat was always better. But it's remarkable the attention to detail that you have in your products. Did you?
Well, yeah. I think I know where you're going with the question.
Go ahead, then.
My target market's always been people who would place training as a top 4 priority in their life. So when you start looking at things that are there, family, religion, work, training, so pretty much there's, to drop out of the top 4, or actually to be in the top 4, there's something that's being pushed back to make it go there.
Right.
So every decision that I've ever made in business has kind of been with that in mind. For I know that I'm not going to be going after if we were to go back to the magazine days, I'm not going after the muscle and fitness market. I'm going after the flex market. I'm not going after the men's health market. I'm going after the Powerlifting USA market, or just anybody that training is a top 4 priority. And when you do that, you're dealing with a level of commitment and a level of seriousness that usually isn't found in the other markets. And also there's hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that just fight over, that introductory market, because the attrition rate's so fast. When you're dealing with an 18, 23-year-old market, who cares if they quit every 6 months? There's 10 times for every one that quits. There's 10 more coming in. When you're dealing with our market, which now they've been training for 8, 10 years, you're dealing with people who've been doing this for a very long time. So when it comes to product development, I want to develop products that a 1,000-pound deadlifter would want to use, a 900-pound deadlifter would want to use. If it's developed for them, then it's going to take care of anybody who pulls under that. Or a power rack, for somebody that squats $1,000, it's going to be fine for anybody that squats 200 or 300. I don't want to make the rack that's good for somebody that squats 500, because it will still take care of anybody that squats under that. Fuck that. I want it to, it has to go all the way up, or I don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And it's just a target marketing decision that I've made. And it's also because those are the people I can relate to the most, and I honestly feel they're the people I can help the most. When it comes to their training pitfalls or sticking points and so forth, that's where I can help the most, my team can help the most. And usually those people who put training as a top 4 priority, I'm not totally saying I don't care about people who are coming into the industry, because typically these people who put training as a top priority are helping or servicing those people who are just coming in, because it could be their job.
Right.
So their job is strength coach, personal trainer, and so forth. So we are still touching those people that are coming in, but we're not doing it directly.
Yeah,
yes, it is a way smaller market. It's a way smaller market. I know that.
Which is a huge compliment to the success that you've been able to attain, given the fact that it is such a small market.
I think it helps with the longevity. I really do. I think when you're in an industry that you can experience dynamic growth, and just take off like a rocket. I don't think we've ever had a year of double digit. 10% might be the highest growth rate I've ever had. We've never had this year that, oh my God, where we didn't know what to do. We've always been to stay a little bit ahead of the curve without really freaking out about it, which, looking back, it's good, but at times it's frustrating as all hell, because there's so much more you want to do if you have the capital to do it. That's the shitty thing about business. You gotta have the capital to do it.
Mm-hmm.
People seem to forget that sometimes.
Oh, you should do this.
Or they think, or if you own a business, they think there's way more capital in there than there really is.
Right? There's a big misconception. How did you?
Oh God.
How did you even I know you've been in powerlifting for a long time prior to you developing all of these products, but what was it that made you think, okay, well, we need to add a swing to this bar, or this bar needs more flexibility, or if we do it this way? What was your process? I'm just really interested.
In the beginning, it was more, when I was still competing, it was, I need shit I can use, because that was a big problem. So, some things that you see, like band pegs on racks, we were the first to come out with that. Or a monkey chin bar, we were first to come out with that. And, there were some homemade squat racks that had a sumo squat brace, or sumo squat base, but most of them had the base right on the floor. And it's like, my whole time training, it's like, this sucks. You know, I would actually have to build a wooden platform to take in the gym to put over the fucking power rack so I could get my feet out just a little bit wider because the goddamn base of the rack was in the way. And so in the very beginning, a lot of it was kind of out of necessity. It's like, now if we did this, that would help. And then with the equipment, it was a no-brainer. It's like, all right, with the leg press, the freaking back has to come up higher. You know, there's no reason why people's hips should be coming off of it, or the hack squat. You know, it shouldn't hurt your knees. You know, right. Nobody had the adjustable foot plate. So a lot of the earlier things were just common sense. And because nothing was ever designed for people who were really strong, it was designed basically for bodybuilders who were about 5'6". You know, it's like, okay, well, let's do this. And then once I retired and lost range of motion in my shoulder and, you know, basically slowly become more disabled each year, you know, then it became more of, that's where, say, the yoke bar. That's where it became into, you know, the safety squat bar is great, but I can't use it for more than 3 weeks because the compression on my spine fucks me up. So I need to make a bar that's got a pad that's wider, that's got 2 different thicknesses on the pad, you know, one to kind of support it from staying off your neck and another one that's going to contour to your upper back. So the weight's displaced from shoulder to shoulder instead of just 5 inches above your spine. And 2 years later, that's where we finally came up with the SS yoke bar. And because that's all I can squat with, you know, that and a spider bar, but on a weekly basis, I can't hold a regular bar anymore. So it's like, shit, you know, I can either squat once every 6 weeks, or I got to figure some way out to fix this stupid pad so I can squat with it every week and not destroy my back more. So that shoulder saver pad that snaps on the bar. You can't hold a board by yourself, you know, and then it just so happens that, you know, as you start using the product more and more, you start to realize that board presses are great for somebody that uses a bench shirt, because when they use a bench shirt, the weight displaces throughout the material, throughout the whole shirt, which when you pause a bench on a board, the weight displaces throughout the length of the board. That makes sense?
Yes.
Now, if you're raw and you don't have that shirt, that weight displacement is going to screw you up. So what we found with the shoulder saver pad, and this is why we made it rounded, is now when you bring it down, that weight displacement is very, very thin. You know, it might be twice the thickness of a normal bar. So you still get the restricted range of motion, but the weight at the bottom isn't displacing throughout the period of the whole bar. And this is shit that comes out after, you know, all I wanted to do was to have something I could bench with that didn't hurt my shoulder. And then you sit back and you're like, wait a minute, this also does this, and it does this, and it does this. And then the more you use it, the more you can kind of refine and go from there. Now it's a little bit harder, to be honest. I mean, to come up with ideas, it's just a lot harder. And I don't want to say because we've tapped ourselves out. It's just, I got a lot of shit. You know, it's like I have enough stuff that I can train with and do everything that I want to do. It's like, shit, I need to find a different training methodology so I can start figuring out, you know, other things.
So so you completely piqued my interest, because I've been trying to figure out what to do with the board press when I don't have a spotter, because most of the time I train in my garage gym. So I'm on your site. You have a red one and a black one. Which one would you recommend for me?
The black one's equivalent. It's almost a 3-board. It's like a 2.5 to a 3-board. And the red one is like a 2-board. Typically, I say the 2-board. I mean, if somebody's really got lockout problems, then it's the black. The black one's the first one we came up with because it was just easier to explain to manufacturers what the hell I wanted. And then from there, you know, getting to the other one is...
So for me, probably the red one, you'd think?
The red one, yeah.
Okay, sweet. Awesome.
Yeah. And it's a tight fit, so you're going to have to kind of pound to get it on there. But, you know, a secret is to actually put it on the bar and then put a quarter and then just turn it drop it on your bench. Just turn it upside down and let it. I'm not saying throw it on your bench, but just let it fall 3 or 4 inches, and the bar will slide right into the pad.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'd rather it be super tight than loose and fall off in the middle of a.
That's why we made it super, super tight, so it will last for time, last longer. We are trying to make it out of different material, but the people are out of their fucking mind when they price these.
Dude, seriously, I didn't even know you guys sold something like this. I went to go look for like something similar to this, and there's like board blocks and all these other companies. They're charging like $80, $90, $100 for this crap. I'm like, it's fucking foam. And it looks like
they're
shit.
getting killed on the molding. That's the thing is, and I think we sell the bench blocks, but the problem with that too is I think that the weight distribution that I talked about is a little bit too big, and sometimes people will catch a corner. And if you catch a corner, it's not a good thing. And I also wanted something that's easy to take on and off, because I use it, my training partners don't, so they just pop it off. But we've tried to go with silicone and different type of materials, and we'll finally get one that looks good and goes on and off a lot easier. And then we get the price, and I'm like, you can't really.
Your pricing, this is amazing. Like,
I mean, we have manufacturers like, oh yeah, it only costs you $85 a piece. I'm like, it's going to cost us $85. You can take a hike, So we're always, and that's another part of the business that
you got to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, you can find the suppliers, but then it's like, oh my God, you serious? Then you got to start figuring out something that can get it into a price range that somebody will be willing to pay.
Agreed. No, I'm with you 100%. I'm so excited about this right now. That's awesome. So I found, that my issue had been the lockout, but also for the starting position. I don't know if it's my shoulder placement isn't where it needs to be. So I played with what is it called? The slingshot for a little bit. That helped a little bit, kind of, I guess, because I've heard a lot of people saying that it really messes with their shoulders, or it's pain for them or whatever. For me, I felt like it kind of put my shoulders where it needed to be. And then since training with it, I kind of like memorized the positioning. And then again, with your advice on the bench, had helped me tremendously, because I feel like I wasn't getting enough leg drive, and I wasn't far back enough to drive the load, and more of an arch versus a straight up and down, because I watched myself like a million times, and then I watched videos of you explaining, and so, but
it also sounds to me that you probably might want to lower your weight on dynamic day a little bit, because keep in mind that a lockout issue can also be because you don't have enough speed going into what's called the mini max, or the sticking point. So if I was to spot you during a heavy lift, and you push it to right where it gets hard, and you start to strain, but all I did was tap the bar 1 or 2 times with my forefinger, and you just locked straight through it.
Yep.
Well, what if you went into it just a little faster? That bumps that sticking point up a little bit higher. Now, the reason why I think it could be due to the dynamic work, the slingshot didn't help a lot, and that makes the lockout easier.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because it does. It has that little spring at the end.
Yeah, it's pushing your triceps up. Is what
so lower the weight on the dynamic effort and focus more on really just launching that bar.
Yes, because the slingshot's doing the launching for you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the bottom, that's where it helps. It kind of helps to launch that for you, which is, I don't want to say it's making your starting strength weaker, but it's not helping your starting strength to become stronger. Where if you can develop more force in that part before you hit that mini max, that may get rid of your sticking point entirely. I'm not saying get rid of, I look at everything multifaceted. So I look at it from that dynamic perspective, I look at it from a mental perspective, and I look at it from, a physical perspective. Other thing with bench sticking points, if somebody tells me I always miss 3/4 of the way up, then I know I'm dealing with a mental issue. You know, because if you're telling me it's always in the same place, well, guess what? You need to start picturing, you know, doing mental rehearsals or whatever you need to do, you know, to get the confidence so you quit thinking that way. Because what the hell else are you going to think when you lay down and do a heavy weight? You know that you always stick three-quarters of the way up. You know, it's just natural.
You're so true to that. Yeah, because when I'm like sitting down, when I try to like attempt a heavy lift, and like almost like I suck myself out. But then, you know, when you that psychological thing where you have a spotter behind you and he's just standing behind you, and it's a weight that you think you could do, but you've done it before maybe, but you psych yourself out and you have a failed attempt, and then you get a spotter behind you and they're just standing behind you, that confidence that they're going to get you no matter what. And you lift it like it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, let's relate it back to businessing, because I like to flip-flop things back and forth. If when you do a review with an employee and you think, I hate these things, I'm always anxious when I do them. But then every time you do them, it's like, man, I hate these things, I'm always anxious. Imagine if you went in one time, you're like, man, this is going to be awesome. You know, it's, you know, so you just talk yourself into issues so many times.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Absolutely. Yeah, the psychology of the mind, your attitude, I think plays a huge role. I mean, I know there are days where, like you said, you know, you were saying in the beginning of business, I think it was one of your podcasts, you were talking about how that the difficulties remain the same or they become harder, but what you basically develop this, what is it?
Yeah, you get a little callous.
You get a little callous, you know, and you can just handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there are days, you know, when I'm just like, a problem will arise, and like, I remember one day I lost 3 clients in a matter of 48 hours. Didn't know what the fuck happened. And you know, that was about, I don't know, like $9,000-$10,000 worth of retainers, and just shit my pants, went crazy. I started yelling at my project manager, this was your job, what did you do? You know, now that stuff kind of happens, and I'm like, all right, well, let's figure out what went wrong and see if we can get them back, and if not, well then, all right, we'll do our best.
It's experience, I think, is a big part of that, and I do think that, you know, that's where getting around other people, like I said before, if you can get around other people that are at the same level you are, then, and, you know, people that are levels higher, you know, they can kind of help you through that. I remember the first legal issue I had to go through, you know, I had an advisor tell me, you know, it's going to be a fucking nightmare. It's going to be the worst thing that you're ever going to go through. You're going to learn from it. I can try to give you advice, but you're not going to listen, but you'll understand after it's over. And the advice he gave me was, don't fall for the false narrative. You know, don't fall for the stories you tell yourself. And I can remember, because this was an issue that went on for 1.5 years, you know. So I would get,
go ahead.
You know, I get a letter from their attorneys, and then all of a sudden it'd be like, oh my God, this is going to happen, this can happen, there are 50 different things that are going through my head of what can happen, and then I'm writing them all down, and I'm doing research, and I'm doing all this shit. Then I speak to our attorneys, we come up with a plan, and we fire it back. And then 1 year later, when it's all said and done, out of the probably 200, 300 different scenarios I played, the solution wasn't one of those. It wasn't as worse as I imagined. Yeah. It wasn't as good as I imagined. So I learned from that, you know what? Fuck it. You know, you handle what you can handle when it's in front of you, and then when it's off your hands, like it goes back to the attorneys, I forget about it. You know, it's in their court right now. I got a week where I don't have to worry about this shit. Where before it was like, fuck, I got a week, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, because they always say you got 10 days to reply or whatever. I'm like, this sucks. Make them reply by tomorrow. And now I get it. It's like, fuck, that's 10 days. I don't have to worry about it. Cool.
Yep. No, I think,
you know, and you learn, you know.
That's a huge, huge lesson. And I think that can be attributed to all facets of life, whether you own a business or not. So, yeah, I mean, why stress yourself out? I think a lot of it is overthinking. Like you said, you would create like 200 scenarios when you write them down, and worst case scenarios and best case scenarios. And I remember doing that. I still fall victim to that sometimes. Like I will literally play a million things in my head. I'm like, fuck, this is
Here's the thing where I think people go, I'm glad you said that, because I think it's a thing where people really get confused, because I do as well. I mean, we all do.
Yeah.
We all are victims of our own, basically, demise. But if you have awareness, you know what I'm saying? So you start writing that stuff down, and you're aware. At some point in time, you're going to say to yourself, what the fuck am I doing? Then you'll stop, and you'll get up and walk away. Because you realize this is not going to happen. We're going to go away, but when you have all those paranoid thoughts, you have to say, okay, stop. Mentally, just stop. Get the fuck out of here. Go do something else. Come back later. And remove yourself. And I think that's the big thing, because that's what took me the longest time to learn in business, that I always knew in the gym. Because if you go to a max weight and you're not ready for it, you're not going to still try it.
Nope.
You're going to say, fuck it, not right now. I'm not ready. You're going to step back until you have that focus, then you're going to address it. And I could not put that together in business for probably 15 years, I bet.
That just woke me the fuck up. That makes so much sense to me. That oh God, like that was like, you ever have one of those moments where you're just like a fucking light bulb just hit you? That's so true. If you go try to attempt a PR and you can't fucking lift that shit, you attempt to do it. You're trying to pull, let's say, a 600-pound deadlift. I'm like pulling, like, nope, this isn't happening. I'm going to end right here, and I'll try again later. You don't do that. You don't think about that in business or in life. Like, I'm just not going to do it right now. We'll figure it out. Or I'm just not going to think about that right now. We can figure it out later. It's such a revelation, but it's so simple. It
is very simple. Here's the fucked up thing about it is, in the gym, or let's say you're doing a meet. In a meet, you're on a time. It's like you got 2 minutes to get your shit together to be able to try this. In business, there's no timer. You know what I'm saying? You can step back a day. Let me just figure this out, sleep on it, come back the next day, and come back. That's what makes it even crazier, is because mentally in business, people will put a timer on themselves that doesn't need to be there. Where in the gym, it's completely different. And the other thing, too, with that I tell my lifters a lot of times is, especially in meet situations when the stress is really high, and the stress is going to be high. Mm-hmm. Once again, it always falls back on control what you control, don't worry about what you can't control, all those kind of things. Is if they're getting ready for a max lift, and I see that there's doubt, you can see in their eyes. And I train. I don't do online training. I work with people in person for a reason. Mm-hmm. I need to know their nonverbals. I have to. 65% of everything that I do, if not more, with them as far as pivoting and program adjustments and all that, is based upon their nonverbals. It's not what I see in a video or a piece of paper. It's just how they walk in, how they move, how they interact, how they talk, all the other kind of stuff. But if I see it's a little bit off, then I'll remind them that all you have to do is, as soon as you're called to the bar, don't fuck up the next 12 seconds. That's it. Just don't fuck up. So if you're wrapped or whatever it is,
yep,
just for the next 12 seconds. Now, how hard is it to just not fuck up 12 seconds? Put everything else out of your mind. It doesn't matter right now. Just don't fuck up for 12 seconds. And that could be somebody making a sales call, and they know the call is going to be 1 to 5 minutes. Just for 5 minutes, don't fuck up. Can you go for 5 minutes and not fuck up? This more manageable space in their head. Like, yeah, I can do 5 minutes and not fuck up. Don't ask me to not fuck up for a whole day. 5 minutes? Oh, yeah. I can do that. And with a lift, 12 seconds? You serious? Of course I can be, mentally set for 12 seconds.
Does it ever psych people out? Like, oh, fuck. Like, I don't know if I can do it.
It's always relaxed them. It's good. Always relax them, because it's like, I can control 12 seconds. They still may have doubt, but all they have to do is for that 12 seconds not have doubt. Because you can doubt it all you want until you stand up. Then that shit has to go away just for 10 seconds.
It's that overall perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. And I can reaffirm and say, look, your training cycle went well, your deload went well, your nutrition yesterday went well, you got all your weight back on, everything's gone right to put you in the position that you're in right now to make this lift. Nothing's went haywire. That's as a good coach and as a good lifter, you're not going to put them in a position to do something that they can't do.
Right.
So it's all the cards have lined up for you to be able to do this. The only thing that's kind of standing in the way is your own doubt. So just get rid of that for 8 seconds. And typically they do.
And I think that's the number one contributor. I mean, everything that you're saying, because it goes back to your mantra, what applies at the gym can apply in real life, everything you've learned there. And I think that with anything in life, you putting them in a position where, okay, these next 8 to 12 seconds, don't mess it up, don't fuck it up. You're going to be good, you're going to hit it, whatever. But after that 12 seconds, it's on you, whatever the case may be. I think segmenting things like that, whether it be a sales call, whether it be a marketing call, whether it be like a interview or whatever the case may be, you're absolutely right. If you can almost like set a time limit, I feel like the psyche, it's like it's triggered. Like, okay, I can do this for 2 minutes. I can do this for 5 minutes. It's such a huge lesson, and I think we undervalue the power of the mind. I think a lot of times, what separates people that do shit and execute on shit versus the people that sit there and twiddle their thumbs all day long, playing the victim, woe is me, all that bullshit, is the strength of their will and the strength and the power of their mind. And I truly believe that. And I think, you can agree with me and attest on this as well. Transitioning, I know we got to get you off the phone here. I did want to ask you one last thing. I think it's incredible how you say that you do not do any online training, because there's so many visuals that take place in as being coached by someone, and I agree with you. I'm 100% believer in that. There's just such a significance in being trained person to person. You can see everything that they're doing. They're, like you said, whether they have doubt on their face, whether they're just not there, verbal cues, visual cues, things like that. What would you say, like, and no disrespect to anybody out there doing this in life and what have you, this is their as their career, but what would you say, like, as far as the fitness industry, the strength industry in particular, right now, like, what is your opinion on it? Like, where do you think we're at? Do you think we're better than we were 10 years ago, or was it better 10 years ago? And what do you think about that?
So, the one thing is, I should kind of step back for a second and say that, the lifters that I work with, I do not charge. It's fun for me, so it's a small group of people, and I don't work with any. I want to make people get them to their elite total, and then when I work with them, my main objective in working with them is to get them to be able to teach other people how to do what I'm teaching them. So
okay,
that's a big part of that.
You're not charging for the services.
No, and I never will, because I want to be able to get rid of the people who aren't taking it serious, because I'm putting a lot of time into that, and if I was to go back and charge them what I used to charge as a personal trainer 20 years ago, that's over $4,000 a month, but I'm okay with that because it's fun for me. It's getting my head out of business. I think you got to be able to get your head into different spaces just to be able to remove yourself from certain areas. I got to be able to remove myself from my family to be able to be a better husband and father and so forth. And I need to remove myself from business to be a better leader for my staff and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the industry goes, I've never considered us to be part of the fitness industry. I look at it as we're part of a strength industry, and that's it. And the reason for that is, and that's going back to the target demographic. People put training as their top 4 priorities, and that's because I've always seen the fitness industry since I was in high school is I don't like it. Let's just put it that way. It's like the 3 worst industries in the world, right? Are porn, Wall Street, and the fitness industry.
Agreed.
Porn, you see people getting fucked. Wall Street, you expect you're going to get fucked. In the fitness industry, you don't know you're getting fucked until you just got fucked. All right.
You need to write that shit down. That is a fucking awesome quote. Dave Tate. I'm gonna take those. I'm gonna transcribe that shit.
And that's kind of how I've always seen it, because, and it's not. I don't want to stereotype the entire industry, because there are good people in it. I've met good people in it, but the majority of the people in it are the ones that just want to try to cash out.
Yep.
The only thing that they want to do is to make money. Now, I came into the business that I'm in now, and the industry that I'm in now, because it changed my life. I mean, universities to help train people. They were the guys in a gym that would walk up to kids to show them how to do exercises right, or teach them how to go into powerlifting. So they were kind of laying foundations, and they were planting the seeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And today what we have is we have a bunch of people who are, living in the park that has the grass and the trees and the bushes and all those, the harvest of all the seeds those guys planted. Those guys planted the seeds that created something called a personal trainer, that created something called a strength and conditioning coach, that created, this online training profession. Like, all these professions that these people have now that they can actually make income from are based on the seeds that were planted by people who were doing this all for free 30, 40 years ago. So what's happening today is the industry, they don't want to plant seeds. Or if they do, they throw some down. They might water it a couple times and say, what the fuck? Nothing's growing. But then they get frustrated because nothing's growing, because they expect that they're going to reap their own harvest. But that's not how it goes. They're planting the seeds for the generations that's 2 or 3 generations behind my kids, my kids' kids. So you're supposed to be planting the seeds to be able to provide a better environment for them, the future generations, to be able to work in, that is this fitness strength industry. But instead, they're laying concrete, because they want to be able to throw a ball down and have it bounce right back to them, like a basketball. Like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm willing to throw the basketball down, have it bounce right back in their hands. But that's not how the universe works. The universe works like they throw the basketball as far away from them as they possibly can, and nothing comes back. Right? That's how the universe works. And when I have conversations with people who are frustrated and who are upset because they're just tired of helping people for free, or nobody understands the value of their time, or this and this and this and this, I sit there and tell them, because to me it amazes me. It's like, I've sat in my weight room and done business mentorships with people who wanted to set up gyms, spent 8 hours, multiple times, speaking with them on what they should do, the demographics, how to market, how to lay the gym out, just kind of guiding them so they have a little bit clearer vision. And then 5 months later, find out they bought all their shit from somebody else.
Jeez.
Now, these people want to tell me that they're upset because they keep offering tips to somebody in the gym, but that person will never sign up for their personal training. And they want to tell that to me seriously. When I'm talking about a $500,000 deal that kind of fell through.
Mm-hmm.
But see, the thing is, I don't get upset anymore about that $500,000 deal or that any of those big deals. Because what I realized a long time ago is when I throw that ball out into the universe, a lot of little balls come back that I don't even see. We have hundreds of orders that come in per day, and I would say 90% of those are from people I've never personally spoken to. They're not people that sat out here in the weight room. Those are coming back to me because of what I've put out to the universe. That's what I think people forget.
I think that is the perfect way to end this podcast. That is incredible. The model of reciprocity, no expectation, humility. I wish more of what you believed in existed in this world, but we live in a world where we sell information for money, or we trade knowledge for money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm guilty as ever.
You still have. Don't get me wrong. This is still how people earn money. You can't sit there and say every attorney is going to have to give away all their services for free.
I get it, but even if you can divulge a percentage, right? Like, I'll get people sending me messages on Facebook, on Instagram, like, how do I get 10,000 followers? How I can do this? How can I get better social media management? How can I generate leads for free on my business? And I respond. I respond to almost everybody, unless it's like spam.
Yeah, you can always link an article, and that's helping people, man. I reply to every DM on Instagram I get. Facebook, that's kind of spammed out. Twitter is spammed out, but Instagram for now is still a good platform for this. I'll never let a DM go unanswered. And there's no such thing as a stupid DM, because it may be the, 1,000th time that I've got that question, but it's the first time this person's asked me. Right. And they decided to ask me instead of Google. Now, what kind of honor is that?
Absolutely.
They value my opinion more than Google, and I'm going to blow them off. I don't understand that. But, they do, and I do understand where people come from, where, of course I can't send somebody a whole program, and I can't spend all day long answering somebody's question. There comes a point where the person on the other end most definitely is taking advantage. But, that's where article links come in, and, you can still help, but you can still, and anybody that does this long enough kind of knows how to shut it down, when it gets to that point. Or, as I said before, the people who are asking me to mentor them on their business when they've never supported us in any way. I have no problem calling them out on that. I really can't do that because I'm too busy helping the people who did support us. So there's a lot of tap dancing around, to be able to do it. But, people need to understand that we are human, and we are put on this earth to be able to help and give back and to, help future generations become better than we are.
Absolutely. Look what you just did recently. You gave away a basic conjugate training manual, the bench manual, the Vault ebook. It's 200 freaking pages, right? Mm-hmm. You may not be able to customize the program specifically and take all the time in the world for these people that are maybe asking too much of you, but you've got so much content out there in the internet land that, if people took the time to do a little bit of research, or if they're pointed in the right direction, you have so many articles on your website. It is
that's
unparalleled.
The thing is, if people are new to the industry and they want to build their name into the industry, I've been putting content out since Oh man, before 98, so it's like 1996. I mean, the internet was there, but I mean, before social media, before all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, as long as you're always putting your content out, and you're always, now with social media, I think you should kind of back up anything that you put it out someplace else, because let's say Instagram dies and you got 500 microblogs on Instagram. Well, you can't repurpose that anymore.
Right.
But, you know, the more content somebody puts out, the more you're able to help people, but the more you're able to say, you know what, I already wrote about this. So for me to answer 50 DMs a day is easy, because I already have a whole list of links that all I have to do is copy and paste a link and say, here you go. You know, and it's simple, because the groundwork's already kind of been done.
Which, by the way, I really love that you do that. Like the fact that you take, I don't know how long it takes you to do that, 2, 3, 4 hours of your time to sit there and literally answer every single question on Instagram when you say, ask me something, the little poll. Mm-hmm. That's incredible, man. That's just, not many people do that or will do that, nor will they spend that amount of time to do that. And I hope, you know, that's okay. You know, that's okay. If I can be an example to the 1 or 2 other people who are going to do the same thing. Right, and that's what I was about to say.
That's my purpose. You know, that's what all I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking an hour and 20 minutes of your time, hour and a half. I hope you're okay with me promoting this. I will be probably running some paid advertising to promote this and get this out in the land of the digital. And
let me know, and I can push it myself. So
great. Yeah, I will
fire them out.
Yeah, I'll edit it. I'll have my guys edit it, and I'll send you the file. And if you like, if you use transcription, I can get it transcribed for you, and I'll send you that as well. And then you can do whatever you want. And
that'd be great. If you have access to the transcription, that would be great.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We could definitely do that. Well, thank you so much, Dave, man. I so appreciate it. I'll stay in touch with you on Instagram for sure. As I always.
All right, let me know how your bench goes.
I will. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye-bye.